So we are here to talk about unlocking academic motivation, basically the neuroscience behind how the brain learns and how to help to keep those little adorable brains going. So before I start, I want to ask if could anyone in the room use just a little bit more brain power? It's kind of getting towards the end of the day. I'm going to do this same thing in the main room, so it'll be a repeat for you all. Anybody using a little bit more brain power? Yeah? A little bit? Okay, here. Heads up, heads up. Perfect. Anybody else? Okay, over here. Oh. We'll try to get it back here. Yay! You're really challenging me. Okay, everybody in between me and her, be careful. Here's the thing with these little brains. Oops. You have to be careful because they kind of have a mind of their own. All right, I do have more brains if anybody wants them in a little bit. This is just a good way to get everybody's attention before I start the session. We're going to be going through a lot of different information. And I want to acknowledge that early childhood education, you all have a little bit more of a challenge. And one of the reasons why you have a little bit more of a challenge is because what's not quite there yet. And that's the prefrontal cortex, which is obviously our higher thinking, it's our executive functioning. So I love this slide because it helps you to kind of look at, okay, what's not completely wired? Technically, the elevator is just not going up to the top floor in our little kids just quite yet. So a lot of that higher thinking, the understanding consequences of our actions, we don't get that. We don't actually get that completely until we're in our early 20s. So it's extra challenging for individuals who are working in that early childhood development phase. It's also, in addition to this, you have the extra challenge of technology. So a lot of our little kids nowadays are getting introduced to cell phones, to tablets at an incredibly early age. And that's really kind of scary. I have been walking through the mall, or sometimes as I'm going through the airport, here's the stroller and here's the little toddler in there. What's propped up to keep them entertained? The cell phone, right? Playing a little video. And what's really interesting is a lot of these pieces of technology, the cartoons, the things that they're showing now, are so much faster paced. The brain rhythm is so much faster paced that it's actually programming these little brains to want things instantly. It's no longer the slower cartoons or the slower things like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, right? It is now this very fast paced. So it's actually programming the brain, and it's affecting areas of language development, association, and by association, literacy, they're learning. It's actually changing the way the brain is made up. And some authorities or some experts in the field are actually saying it's causing brain impairment, which is similar to brain damage. So it's pretty scary when you look at that. Another quote here by Dr. John Hutton, he says that levels of screen time can impact a child's growth. And one result is parts of the brain related to the things that you are teaching, right? Reading, language, decision making are often weaker the more screen time. So not only do you have that challenge of that prefrontal cortex just not quite being there yet, you have this additional challenge that we have with technology. So what are you going to do about it, right? What do we do? How do we combat that? Well, the first thing, I'm going to give you several tips over the next 45 minutes or so that are going to help you, that are actual, real physical things that you can do in the classroom. And one of those is just simply start with the environment. There's a lot of things that neuroscience is showing us can help the brain process, help the brain learn, help the brain psychologically stay calm by including them. So we're going to talk a little bit about some plants, we're going to talk about water, we're going to talk about aromatherapy, lots of fascinating neuroscience going into this particular area. So let's just jump in, and I'm going to look occasionally over here to my screen to look at some of the notes because I've got a lot of neuroscience reports, and I want to be sure that I get those accurate for you. A word of caution, of course, is always, I might even be talking about snacks and things like that, since there might be allergies, there might be, different reasons why you can't use this. So you might want to check with anything that the children in your classes might have before you all of a sudden start diffusing peppermint into the room if there's an allergy to that. So just a word of caution as we go through that part. So let's start with plants. Plants are absolutely amazing. Plants have been shown, having plants in your atmosphere have been shown to reduce stress and anxiety, to lower cortisol, actually lower cortisol production in the brain, improve concentration and focus, and work at green spaces can increase the physical well-being of your children. They're not just for decoration. There's so many interesting things. Exeter University did a study, and this was on office buildings, not on your pre-K classrooms, but it was done in office buildings. And what they found was that offices that had, especially the larger leaf kind of atmosphere cleansing capabilities or components to them, 60% less mold. So how many of you are working in buildings that might be older, right? That might have, right? So you're going to have mold challenges, 60% less mold. So what that equated to was 47% increase in productivity and 20% increase in memory retention. So by bringing the green spaces indoors, there's also a lot of psychological benefits to plants. So Melinda Kruth, who worked at North Carolina State University, she said there's been evidence to show that plants help us by decreasing our stress and anxiety, as well as increasing our creativity, reducing those cortisol levels that they measure in the saliva, and in both educational and work settings. So being able to bring in more plants. There's also a huge psychological benefit to it. Participants who were exposed to indoor plants had greater EEG-A waves, which is related to relaxation. So sometimes we want our little ones to be a little bit more relaxed, and had greater EEG-B waves, which is related to attention. How many of you would like your little ones to pay a little bit more attention sometimes, right? Oh, this hand went up really fast. The Journal of Psychological Anthropology said that actually interacting with the plants, touching the plants, engaging with the plants, showed lower or better psychological results, lower stress levels, of course, because we're dealing with cortisol. If you can do activities that are involved with plants and actually planting things or caring for the plants, it's even better for the little ones. Maybe once a month, have them plant a new plant with their bare hands. And the reason why I say this is because there is something called Bacterium vaccae. Vaccae. I knew I was going to pronounce it wrong the first time. Bacterium vaccae that is naturally occurring in soil. When that transfers through your hands or through your body, through your skin, it actually causes the brain to produce serotonin. And serotonin is a relaxing, feel-good kind of a neurochemical. So actually getting their hands dirty is a good thing in these cases. So think about, how might I be able to introduce these types of things into my day-to-day activity with my kids in my classes, and even into in the environment. It's also good to give responsibilities to the little ones. Okay, it's time to water the plants, it's time to care for the plants. How are the plants doing? Do we need to give them attention? So it also starts to create and develop in their brains the sense of responsibility. Another thing you can do in the environment is to, I did it backwards, sorry, is to bring in water. Now, a lot of people haven't thought about this, or they think about, she's talking about playing with water, and with these little kids, they'll make a mess. I'm not necessarily talking about playing with it. I'm talking about actually bringing water features into the environment. Falling water is amazing. For one thing, it's this gentle kind of rhythm in the background, which will help to balance the brain waves right? It is nature-based spaces can support calm and recovery, which water is part of that nature. It also supports the attention and learning by a serotonin boost. And one of the reasons why it boosts serotonin is when you have falling water, these water molecules break open and they create negative ions in the air. And then when we're breathing that air, it produces serotonin in the brain. So it actually is beneficial from a neuroscience point of view. This study that was done, it's a book that was written called The Owner's Manual for the Brain. It says, generally speaking, native ions increase the flow of oxygen to the brain, resulting in higher alertness, decreased drowsiness, and more mental energy. So we'd love to have that in our little kids, right? Went too far. Negative ions are believed to produce biochemical reactions that increase the levels of mood chemical serotonin, helping to alleviate depression, relieve stress, and boost daytime energy. I'm doing your closing keynote. In that particular session, I'm going to talk a lot about ACE scores, adverse childhood experience scores. So a lot of this is we're going to talk about how things like those positive brain chemistry is affected by your experiences. So these are things that you can do to combat the results of some of those negative experiences by creating a very safe, very comfortable, very brain-friendly atmosphere where you're actually teaching. Because it's going to give the children that kind of baseline where their brains are going to be more open to being able to receive and grow. All right, so that is that. Now we're going to talk about sense. Oh, they've done so many fascinating studies on sense. So why does sense affect, the sense of smell affects or I should say sense that you smell, affect the brain better and deeper than any of the other senses? And there's a reason for that. So typically when information comes into our brain, it goes to the thalamus. And then the thalamus routes the messages coming in from the sensory systems in two directions. It routes it up to the higher thinking, to the prefrontal cortex. It routes it down to the amygdala, which then the amygdala, based on that information, it kind of taps on the door of the hippocampus and says, what memories do I have connected to this incoming data that I need to apply in this situation? And then if it either now connects it to a new memory, or it brings up an old memory that is either scary or happy, and then depending on that, it's either going to introduce the stress mechanism or it's going to introduce something very positive. The thing about scent, about smell, it bypasses the thalamus. It does not go through the routing system that way. It goes directly to the amygdala in the limbic system. So when you look at the brain, you've got the action portion, which is the lower. You've got the emotion portion, which is the center. Action portion works 100,000 times faster than the thinking portion, 100,000 times faster. The limbic system, the emotion section of the brain, works 80,000 times faster than we can think. Right? So this is why when you're under stress, you lose the ability to think because that emotion center is working so fast, it takes control before you can even control it. Now that sense of smell goes directly to that emotion center. So it can calm faster than any of the other sensory inputs. So when we look at this, you look at different things, and I've put together a big list, and I do have one slide. At the end, we're going to talk about several things, but then at the end, there's a slide that has them all on it. That'll be a good one if you want to take a picture of it. So things like the reason why this happens is because it's connected to emotion and memory faster. It can influence calmness and alertness. It can actually act to calm anxiety. When you look at things like lavender, this is something that a lot of people will take or spray on their pillows for relaxation, right? It helps with that. Working memory, it is good with rosemary. Cognitive function. We want our kids, at certain times in our day, we want to have the cognitive function raised, mental alertness. Peppermint, I love peppermint. So the interesting thing about peppermint is it not only does it help with things like headaches, but it helps with focus and memory retention. They've done studies in classrooms where they've taken and while they're teaching a particular subject, they'll infuse they'll defuse, I should say, in a diffuser, the peppermint smell, okay? Then when they went to test the children on those topics, they split the class into two sections. Half of them did not receive the peppermint scent back. The other half received peppermint scent in the room while they were being tested. Across the board, every single child in the reintroduced peppermint scented room scored better than the control group that didn't have the scent. So it was the triggering of the peppermint not only while you were learning a subject, but also while you were recalling that subject. So fascinating. Peppermint is one of those that are great. Lemon is mood enhancement, right? Mental clarity. And again, when we think about the things that our kids, the baggage that our kids may be coming into the classroom with, we might need one of these options to help with. Eucalyptus, respiratory, stress relief. And you've got things like frankincense, grounding, emotional balance. You want to calm the classroom after recess, after being out there and playing. This is a really good one. Bergamot, anxious thoughts, emotional fatigue, helps to relax. Roman chamomile, soothing irritability, nervous tension, lowering blood pressure for yang, stress reduction, mood lift. Orange, creativity. Yeah.
What about chamomile? Has to be Roman chamomile?
No, a chamomile is good, but Roman chamomile has been shown to be the most effective out of the chamomiles, right? So you can use chamomile, right? This is just the specific ones that I have neuroscience backing on it. So this is a good slide. If you want to take a picture of this slide, this is a good one. This is a good one. So this kind of puts it all onto that one sheet that you can take a picture of. Yes?
So my understanding is, because I have a home daycare, so my understanding is we're not allowed to use it.
This is what we are going to we are talking. Licensing doesn't allow it.
Licensing doesn't allow it here. Okay.
Plants either.
Huh?
You cannot have plants reach to the kids. Mine are on the top. They can go.
So they can't touch it.
Eat it. They can eat it.
Right.
So
Right.
I have it high.
And that's one of the reasons why I put that word of caution on the very first slide, right? Because there are legal requirements in each state that are slightly different, that may preclude utilizing some of these things. With the diffuser, then it might be you spritz it on yourself before you. Yeah. Come give me a hug.
Or you can talk to the pepper people in Colorado and give them the information.
There you go. Or you can get all this information to the ones who make the rules, right? It's emerging science, right? And a lot of our states and a lot of our government facilities are behind the times when it comes to things like this. So if you can't use it, I understand it. It might be something, again, that you can actually use. But again, if there's allergies, I do understand that that's some reasons why they will put that, or if there's danger, because there are some plants that are obviously toxic. If you can have them up high, they're still going to do the air purification job.
That's what I do.
Right? Then that's if that's allowable, then I would suggest doing that, because you're going to get the mold reduction and the improved oxygen in the rooms.
Yeah, we're allowed to have certain plants as long as they're not toxic towards children.
Gotcha.
So it's not like we have we only have, I think it's only 4 plants that no matter if they get knocked over and a child puts it in their mouth, or they take a leaf off and puts it in their mouth, it won't harm them.
That's awesome. So then those would be the ones that you would want. If you can, a good size pot, say a 6 to 8 inch pot every 100 square feet
Okay.
is kind of the rule of thumb. Here, and then we'll go here. Yeah.
To diffusers too, it's only while the children are present that we cannot use them.
Oh, there you go.
You can always run one before they come, but you can't use things like peppermint because of children that may have asthma. There's certain ones you can't use, but.
So you have to do that little bit of extra homework.
Or in a room,
Yeah.
somewhere, yeah.
There you go. Go ahead.
So in a facility, specifically, I guess in my facility specifically, we're not allowed to have any plants, living plants that we have to water every day.
Gotcha.
We do have gardens outside that we let the kids go garden every day,
Yes.
or once a week, or you have to go, they garden once a week and then they water them every day, but that's outside. So a lot of the times, I try to have that airflow, but also like get the plants and stuff. So I don't know how that would help.
Yeah, outdoor air, bringing out, it's indoor air, we think of it as being, oh, it's filtered. It's actually very bad. It's like the worst air quality is your indoor air quality, unless it happens to be a day when the outdoor air quality is exceptionally bad, or you're living in a city where you're dealing with a lot of exhaust and things like that. But in general, anytime you can bring the outdoor air. And even having, the interesting thing about plants is the psychological benefits of plants go beyond having them right next to you. If you can have them by a window outside, like if you're not allowed to have them inside, where the kids can see them. Because then when you're talking, I'm going to talk about teaching mindful meditation to little ones, which is totally doable. It's a little different than what we do as adults. But just being able to see nature, they've done studies like in hospitals, pain medications go down, requests for pain medications, the overall healing process is accelerated in the hospital rooms where they can see green spaces. So even being able to bring, put that, if you can't bring them inside, there's the psychological benefit of that. Okay, keeping things moving, keeping things novelty, fun. A lot of you all know this part. It's just part of the things that engage the brain better. Whenever something stays the same for too terribly long, then you lose the attention. Even sitting for more than 15 to 20 minutes at a time, you'll watch the brain waves and it'll kind of go like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's a huge drop in brain energy because you're just losing the oxygen level. So I'm going to talk about movement, and that's one of the big benefits of movement. So doing things that are able to just engage the brain on a different level, something different. So I tell people this is one of my absolute favorite pictures of Albert Einstein. I would have loved to have met that man. Get up and move around, right? Do movement. Gesture, exaggerate. Do something that's going to make their brain go, oh, what's going to happen next? Right? What are they going to do next? Telling a silly story, right? Just something completely off the wall that's going to make them listen is beneficial. Using visual aids that are fun, stuffed animals, cars, those types of things. And then I tell people, just be silly sometimes. Like, just do something silly. Not only is that going to engage their brains and get their attention, kind of like me throwing purple brains out to the audience, right? It's a very silly thing to do, but it got everybody's attention. And it's something I doubt any of you expected me to do, right? And for those of you that almost got hit, I apologize for the adrenaline push in your body. But doing things that are just off the wall, not only does it get their attention, it also tells them that it's okay to be yourself, which is something psychologically that we want to communicate to our kids. Teaching breathing techniques is incredibly beneficial, something that you want to try to do as much as possible. We think we teach ourselves breathing meditation, like, okay, I need to just take some deep breaths because I'm really stressed out. We can do the same thing for our kids. And if we empower them at the ages of 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, right? We're giving them a lifetime tool that they can use that is embedded into their brain. And we know that deep breathing can reduce stress. When the stress mechanism kicks in, that 80,000 times faster amygdala takes over the brain. One of the things it does is it shuts down the prefrontal cortex because it needs a lot of energy to handle this situation. So it kicks in and takes over and shuts down the front part of the brain, which the kids only have part of the front part of the brain anyways. So when you are able to teach them breathing, there are certain breathing techniques that you can do that actually open up. And I've got a slide for that too, that I'm going to show you, that'll actually open up that frontal portion of the brain. So you can teach them that, and it's very helpful. So it helps them in emotion control because you're dealing at an age where that is a challenge oftentimes. And different techniques, you can teach them different techniques to work in different situations. So here's my 3 top ones for kids, right? There's the belly breathing, really teaching them to breathe from their belly button. This is a fun thing to do when you can have them lay on the ground and put a toy or a book or something on their belly button right there, and then have them take deep breaths and watch it move up and down. right? It's kind of fascinating for the kids to realize that they're controlling this thing that's on their belly. So you're teaching them to really engage deep in their gut, which a lot of kids don't, especially none of us do, when we get stressed. We shallow breathe, and that's the exact opposite of what we want to do in high anxiety moments. What was that?
Blow is what I thought.
Yes,
Blow my
blow.
nose, blow my nose.
Yes, exactly. And I also think I should have had if they could have put the pinwheel, right? Because talking allergies, you might not be able to use something. But the pinwheel, right? They can blow to watch the pinwheel move. So that's another technique. So everybody stand up because you've been sitting for a little bit, so I want to get the oxygen level back up to your brain. And we're going to do the box breath. So a box breath is one of the first things, or best ways, to calm the sympathetic nervous system and bring up the parasympathetic. So sympathetic is anxiety, limbic is in control, parasympathetic is calmer, and it opens up that frontal cortex. So you can just have them, and you can just do this any time with them so that they know this technique. So just have them walk in a box, right? So you're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. So it's a fun way, it's a fun little game you can play with the little kids. It gets them up and moving, has them walk in an actual box. And that's what we call the box breathing. You do that a couple of times and you're going to engage or calm the brain and raise the thinking part. Pardon me.
Is crossing your legs any significant part?
So I do that. So she was asking about crossing my legs, right? Because I crossed my legs as I did this. The fun thing about that is whenever you do cross-body work, you're actually charging your brain up because you're causing the movement across your corpus callosum, so you're firing the brain up. So yes, crossing the leg is good. I'm going to talk about it. We're going to do an exercise in the big room later that has to do with crossing your arms. So if you can, depending on how coordinated they are, but yeah, crossing the legs as you do that is a good positive thing. Okay, did we get pictures? Anybody who wanted a picture of this? Did you get pictures? Okay. All right. So we're going to do, the next slide is on celebrating micro wins. If you have a child that has a high ACE score, right, a lot of adverse childhood experiences in the home, they're probably at this age already developing a very low self-esteem. And that's going to flow over into the rest of their life. Right? So when you give them high fives on everything that they do, every effort that they put out, you give them thumbs up. Celebrating those micro wins is going to teach, is going to teach their brain that they're moving, they're good, right? It's going to build their self-esteem. It's going to help, it's going to actually kick in a dopamine response in their brain. It's going to activate the reward center. So the high fives, the thumbs up, that was such a good effort. I love what you do, even if you cannot even tell what that drawing is. They put effort into it. So by acknowledging that and praising them for that, that's going to give them the positive feedback loop in their brain, right? And that is going to help them to build resilience. It's going to help them to feel more confident. It's going to help them to be more willing to do the next challenging thing. Even if they really didn't complete this as well as they should have, that's okay. Give them the thumbs up. Give them an A for effort, if that makes sense, okay? Teach them visualization techniques. Again, you may think this is something that, you know, in doing it to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. Yes, absolutely. You're basically teaching them to use their imagination. So you can have them close their eyes, or you can just tell them, let's visualize what this might look like. It gives them creativity. It opens up especially if they're not allowed to do things like this at home. You actually make this a daily practice for 5 or 10 minutes. Let's just come up with whatever. I'm going to give you a car, or you show them a visual of some sort. I want you to think of a story about this, and then have them draw it out, right? Have them have them explain it or share it with the class, right? It helps them, it builds the resilience at a very early age. It gives them the ability to start tapping into things that they're going to need in all portions of their life. So this is a really good way to, or a good slide to take a picture of the benefits of neuroscience of visualization. It gives them a dopamine release. It calms that amygdala because it's taking the attention, they're using that prefrontal cortex more. They're using the thinking portion of the brain every time they have to visualize. They're also, the visualization takes place primarily on the right side of the brain. So they're engaging the right side. And then when you tell them, tell me the story, or you first tell them to draw the pictures connected to that story on a piece of paper, and then you ask them, tell me your story. Now you're engaging the left side of the brain. So you're getting a lot of this beautiful hemispheric back and forth exercise of the brain. And it's growing those neurons, right? It's teaching them to look at things. And this is going to help when somebody takes their toy or somebody takes the blocks that they were playing with and they want to blow up, right? It's helping them because now they're thinking, you're just exercising the portions of the brain that they need to solve other problems. So teach them visualization is a great thing to do. Did I go backwards again? No, I did not. Okay. Teaching them to think outside the box. Teaching them to be really creative. It goes hand in hand with visualization. So when they are struggling to do a particular challenging activity for them, how could you do this in a different way than what I told you how to do it? If you were going to tell little Susie sitting next to you how to do it, how would you explain it? Let them come up with the answers. They may be completely off the wall, but again, what you're doing is you're starting to create, you're giving neuron growth in their brain. You're exercising portions of their brain, problem-solving portions of their brain that are going to not only last with them for their entire life, but it's also going to apply to other things. So if they're having a challenge with whatever your particular task you just gave them, and you start to teach them this, how to think outside the box, how would you fix this? What are some other ways to look at it? Let's get up from this seat and come over here and sit in this seat, and we're going to look at that paper in a different way. Helping them to do that, now it's going to feed over when they have that aggressive confrontation on the playground. Right? Or something doesn't work in another area of the class. You're working a muscle, and you're training them to use a portion of their brain that is going to benefit them across the board in all kinds of other things. Physical play, getting up and moving. Again, just going from a sitting to a standing position. If you have been sitting for more than 30 minutes, going from a sitting to a standing position is going to increase the oxygen level to your brain by 10 to 15%. So movement is huge. It is absolutely huge, and it's very important. Movement is one of the most powerful ways to release or get your brain to release the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, the BDNF, right? University of Illinois did research, and they showed how it was important, connected to things like motor control, measured attention, mental flexibility, language use, and this particular study has been repeated in a lot of different universities many times. So movement. This was just a 6-minute walk that they based this study on. So every time that you are able to do things like this and incorporate this, it's excellent for the brain. 10 minutes of walking, it had significant positive effect on, the memory, multisensory, short-term memory tasks, as well as that long-term memory later. Creative tasks, mathematic problem solving ability, brain plasticity, and cognitive function are significantly improved by movement. So as much movement as we can do, even if it's, okay, they have to do this math, they're learning math, and so they're having to do basic math. Can they stand while they're doing it? Can they get up and move while they're doing it? Or can they count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, what can they do? Think of ways that you can open up and get movement involved in there. Multisensory learning, this one kind of speaks for itself. Just the more, I always tell people, the more senses that you can attach to a learning fact, the easier it's going to be to pull that back up, to pull that memory back up. So if they're just learning based on what they see on a piece of paper, they're not going to remember it nearly as well as if they are now doing something physical connected to that, as well as something more auditory, in other words, being instructed auditorily, as well as feeling, right? So how many senses can you involve in each learning thing that you're trying to teach, each lesson? The next one, and this is huge, there's so much research on this, music. Music can induce structural and functional brain changes. It literally changes the wiring in the brain. There is one primary home of music. It is in the back right portion of the brain. When you are engaging, so if you're just simply listening to music, you're going to engage this. But when you get them involved in music, you have them play drums, you have, anything. Yes, anything that's going to, and get them that rhythm. Music that way is one of the only activities that has been shown to engage almost the entire brain, including the emotion centers in the brain. So include music as often as you possibly can. Music activities activates nearly all portions of the brain, including memory, pleasure, motivation, and movement. You want your kids to be more motivated, you want to remember things better, music's an excellent way, yes.
Is that just playing music or them being involved with people?
Okay, good question. Is it just playing music or is it being involved in music? Both. So certain types of music, specifically they've done research on classical type music, Bach, things like that, lightly playing in the background has been shown to open up creative areas in your brain. So if you can play that, just have something in the background playing, it's going to help the brain learn. Now it's going to one-up it even more if you can incorporate that music into the actual lessons themselves, especially if you go back to the other slide about movement, and now you're doing music and movement together. You've got a double whammy that's positive, right? Yes?
Do you mind if I just add a comment to what you're saying?
Please do, yeah.
That's how I teach, is a lot of music. If I'm trying to get my kids' attention instead of yelling at them, I sing what I'm asking them to do.
Love it.
Also, like during tables, so I teach at a Christian school, and so what we do is at table time, where there's centers, I will play music in the background. I will either have the kids tell me which kind of music they want to listen to, and then we also, once a week, we have what we call worship, but a lot of people at centers or districts would be just music and movement. And so what I always do is I bring out everything, and then I let them do their music with the video or with the songs. So then they can make up their own tune with the maracas or the drums or whatever, but they're still dancing and doing it all at the same time. So there's a lot more happening than just listening to music.
I love that. See, then their brain is just on fire, right? It's on fire. Okay, moving through these last couple of slides, comfort is really, really important. We know that when the body's physically uncomfortable, their brain is distracted. And I always use the illustration, if you're walking down the street and you have a tiniest little pebble in your shoe, what are you thinking about? The pebble in your shoe. You're not thinking about everything that you're missing, that you're walking past. So for them, it's the same thing, right? If you want to optimize their brains, you can do things that are going to make them comfortable. And a lot of tables and chairs are so incredibly uncomfortable. So can you incorporate things in your classroom that will bring in more comfort? Neuroscience or neuroimaging research shows that the disturbances in the brain's learning circuits and neurotransmitters are interrupted by comfort. Physical comfort helps learning because discomfort competes with attention, increases stress, and reduces the brain resources. When the limbic system is stressed out, when it has control, you cannot think clearly. And neither can our kids. Comfort is huge. Take lots of micro breaks. Lots and lots and lots of micro breaks are super important. Like I said, the brain waves, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, huge drop off. So you never want to have your kids sitting for that long. You want to get them up and move. Even if it's just, let's walk around the desk, right? Let's walk around the room, play a little music, walk around the room, do some physical activity for just a few minutes. That's going to help the brain tremendously. This one I know you're incredibly limited on. But I do always throw this in here. As a certified brain health professional, what we eat matters for our brain. Huge. What we drink matters for our brain in a huge, huge way. So again, I know you're limited due to allergies and nuts and things like that. If there's no berry allergies, your dark berries are super good for the brain. Blueberries are brain berries, right? So things that you can incorporate during that snack time that are healthy, and making sure that they drink enough water. This is something that a lot of kids just simply do not do. And at the end of the day, your actions and reactions to, as educators, is going to make a huge difference in the kids that we instruct and the kids that we raise. So I applaud all of you. This is not an easy job. It's not an easy job. It's rewarding, I know, when you see it, the success, and when you can incorporate some of these neuroscience pieces, your success will be even greater. You'll see it and experience it in your kids.